guys, welcome back. It's been a while. Oh my goodness, it has been far too long since I've sat down to record one of these podcast videos for you guys. It's been probably close to 2 months now, if not more than 2 months since I last uploaded one. I hadn't planned on taking a huge break. I mean, my goal really was to do one a month, and I didn't think that was going to be that hard, but apparently so. To be honest, this last month, September, has been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions for me. I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video for those of you who aren't interested, so you don't have to listen to that. But yeah, if you've been following me on social media, you probably have an idea of what I'm going to be talking about. But anyway, before we get to all of that, hi, how are you? My name is Mina, and this is the Knitting Expat Podcast channel. I'm the host, I guess. Sorry, I'm really out of practice and it feels quite weird. Yeah, so you can find me online as Mina Phillip on Ravelry. I design and sell knitting patterns on Ravelry as Knitting Expat Designs, and I'm also on Instagram as Knitting Expat. Sorry, really rusty and really sort of stuttery this morning, but anyway. Yeah, so I have lots of fun things to share with you guys today, and lots of fun things in the works, so that's all great. Another reason why I hadn't been podcasting so much this year was because I've been, pretty much since the pandemic started, I've been working on a really big project that I'd had in my mind for a while and finally got round to like working on, and it's coming to an end now, thankfully. It's looking like I'm aiming for publication towards the end of this month, if not early November, so end of October, early November. It's not been 100% finalized yet. I still have a few photos to take for it. I'm calling it an ebook because a collection doesn't feel quite right, although it is a collection of designs. You'll see when I talk about it a bit more in the future, but just calling it a collection doesn't sound quite right to me. It's a bit more than that, so I'm calling it an ebook because that's how it's going to be published, because the individual patterns aren't going to be published individually. It is going to be as an ebook, and that will be the only way you can get it. And once again, when I get to talk a bit more about the format and how it works, you'll understand why that is. But anyway, like I said, that's coming to an end, so now I have more knitting that I can actually share with you guys. And stuff has just been piling up. If you could see the pile of stuff next to me, you would know what I'm on about. But anyway, so I have a few one long-standing WIP that has now been finished. I don't tend to have a lot of long-standing WIPs, but I'll explain why I have that. I don't actually have any projects on the needles right now, so I'm currently working on a scrappy project, kind of to fill in the gap whilst my brain resets and I have time to do some other calculations before I cast on something new. I have plans for a new Knit With Me series, which I realise now it's been a year since I did the last one, so rather the first one. So I'll be doing another Knit With Me series, and I'll talk more about that as well. Layla came home from preschool the other day and said, "Mummy, I don't have any mittens. I need mittens." And I was like, well then, we need to fix that, don't we? I can't have my child going around with no mittens. It's not really mitten weather yet, but I guess a couple of the kids in her class had mittens, and so she wants mittens now. So we went and picked out yarn together, and I have a little video clip of that which I'll share in a bit as well. And yeah, so there's gonna be lots of talking about finished objects and upcoming things, and a couple of little acquisition-y things. I mean, there's been a fair amount of stuff that's come in since I last podcasted, I think, but most of that was stuff for this big project I've been working on, and it's been knit up already, so I don't have it to show you. And yeah, so I think we're just gonna dive right in. So I think I covered all the general logistical stuff. Oh, show notes. I do typically just include notes and stuff below the video in the description box, but if there is ever anything that you need more information about, or you want to know more about, that I forget to mention, feel free to ask and I will be happy to answer below. Oh, I guess in terms of other news, actually, I'm currently, today is Saturday the 10th, I want to say. Yeah, Saturday 10th of October. So today's day 3 actually for the Vogue Knitting Live weekend for October for their virtual knitting event. I've been teaching every month since August, and I will be teaching again next month as well for anyone who's interested. So I teach 4 classes over the weekend, the 4 days of the weekend. So I think this weekend I taught my How to Knit Socks 2 at a Time class, Marling Yarns Made Easy. Today's my pattern hacking class, and then tomorrow's my German short row heel and mini heel flap and gusset adjustment class as well. And I think I'm teaching those same 4 classes next month. However, I do have a question for you guys. If you were to take a class by me, or that I was teaching, what would you be interested in me teaching, essentially? I've been teaching the same 5 to 6 classes now for the last couple of years, and I'm looking to sort of expand my offering and maybe come up with some new classes to offer for next year. And I'm just wondering what you guys would like me to teach you, or that you'd be interested to see me talking about a bit more or teaching a bit more. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on that. I did actually have plans, and I was intending to start teaching like a beginner spinning class this year, but I really don't feel like that's well suited to an online format, at least for my teaching style and how I imagine teaching that class. So I've sort of put a pause on that until in-person classes can start up again. But anything else, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on what you'd like to see. And maybe that'll give me some directions as to like what I can do in terms of class offerings and stuff like that. So feel free to let me know. And was there any other news? Oh, I'm also going to be hosting a podcast lounge, a 1 hour sort of, I guess, meetup type thing over on Zoom for Indie Untangled. I think it's called Indie Untangled Everywhere, which is going to be next weekend. It's over the next weekend, same as what would have been Rhinebeck weekend. And so my slot is going to be at 4 p.m. on Thursday. I'm not mistaken. I think that's right. If it's wrong, I'll put the right time up on the screen. I think it's 4 p.m. on Thursday the 15th, so that's next Thursday. And I'll be hosting, I guess, a little meetup for an hour. And I'll have a link down below where you can register to get tickets for that. I think it's only $5. It is an affiliate link, so I get a small percentage of the that $5 essentially. It doesn't cost you anything extra, just being completely honest. Yeah, so there's that, and you can sign up to get tickets for the whole event, not just for the 1 hour meetup as well. And I think it's just $5 for access. And there'll be vendors and other sorts of activities and stuff going on, so I definitely recommend checking it out if that's something you're interested in. And there'll be I think there's other people hosting meetups as well. I know Mars from Hey Brownberry, Grace from Babel's Traveling Yarns, and there are a couple of others I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, so I think those were the main sort of initial housekeeping stuff. I have had a couple of pattern releases since we last spoke. I'm trying to remember now. So this was the most recent sweater I've published now. This is my everyday Marl sweater. And I've just called it that because it's a very simple everyday raglan style sweater. Mine is a cardigan version, but you can also knit it as a pullover. The pattern is kind of a 2-in-1. It has cardigan and pullover instructions. So both versions are actually knit in the round, and the cardigan is steeked. So it's a good opportunity to practice those steeking skills or giving it a go if you've never done it before. I do have a video on my channel for like a step-by-step steeking video. I think it's called Let's Steek Together. And it's a little video where I walk you through how I steek using a swatch. And I think that's the best way to practice steeking if you're scared of it. You're scared of ruining a sweater or a bigger project. Steek a swatch. It's really not that complex of an idea. You don't have to wait until you've knit a full project to then practice your steek. You can just steek a swatch and just steek something that's not super important, essentially. You can even pick an old swatch that you've already done and steek it and just practice. You don't even have to knit a new one if you don't want to. But yeah, so that's something I would highly recommend, and you can find that on my channel either by just scrolling down, or you can look in my playlists section. I have a tutorials playlist and it will be in there. But this is the everyday Marl sweater. Like I said, I did mine in the cardigan version and some really fun features. I did a My button band I did in garter stitch, and then I did an I-cord bind off, which I feel like gives a really nice sort of structured finish to the garment. It has a really nice finished edge. It's nice and smooth, and because it's I-cord, and I-cord isn't as stretchy as garter is, it stops that button band from like stretching out too much as well, which is quite nice. And yeah, and I explained in the pattern exactly how I calculated my marling pattern and where I made my changes and all of that. So all of that's included in the design. There are 11 sizes, I believe, in the design, so quite a wide size range. It goes from, I think, 28 or 30 inch chest circumference up to like 68, 69 inch chest circumference, and that's with around 4 inches of ease included. So pretty wide range of sizing there. I always try and include as many size ranges as I can. And there's also 4 different price points you can pay for the pattern. So the pattern is listed for £10 plus VAT if you're in a country that requires it. But then I've offered 3 coupon codes, one for 20%, one for 40%, and one for 60% off. So depending on your situation, you can decide how much you are able to afford to pay for the pattern, and purchase that way. It's the most simple way that I can come up with on Ravelry and on Etsy to be able to offer my patterns at a variety of price points. That is the most accommodating I can be in terms of not underpricing myself. And yeah, so far it's worked out pretty well, and I'm really happy with how this sweater has turned out. I'm really happy with it. There's options for a 3/4 length sleeve like I have, or full length sleeves, although in fairness I think sleeves are really easy to adapt to however long you would like, but especially when they're knit top down, you can try it on as you go and decide what you want to do with it. And also the length of the cardigan or sweater, mine is a more cropped length, but you can there again decide how long you want it to be, because it's knit top down and it's very easy to modify that. The other pattern that I've released, which was only released earlier this week, are for these pair of socks, and you may notice they are hand spun socks, which is super fun. And this was in collaboration with the Wool and Fibre Arts people, who are doing a Socktober festival this month, and they asked me if I'd like to design a pair of socks out of hand spun. Like, it's available for everybody. I was just designing a pair of socks along for the festival. And so this hand spun was actually spun by my friend Sarah, who's an amazing spinner. My hand spun is nowhere near this consistent or beautiful to be used as like standard sock yarn. And the pattern that I went with is based in rib. It's basically a rib pattern, so it's really nice and stretchy. And I've called it Changing Lanes because of the changing rib and the way the rib moves and changes around. So I called it Changing Lanes, and with this pair I did only a couple of repeats of the actual pattern, and I did the rest of the sock with just a standard ribbing throughout. And this pair was knit top down. And I think I used 2.5mm needles, so slightly larger needles. And the pattern for this has 5 sizes included, just because of the way the patterning works. It was that was the easiest way to write it up. So there's a variety of sizes from 48 stitches up to 80 stitches, and it has my heel flap and modified heel flap adjustment and German short row heel. I did mine in garter, but you can of course do it in stockinette or garter as you'd like. And yeah, I'm really happy. And it's also written for toe up, and I did do a sample in toe up, and this is out of my own hand spun, so it's definitely a lot chunkier. And I dyed this yarn as well. I dyed this yarn with food colouring with Layla, I think. It was a Polworth nylon blend from John Arbon, and we kind of did like a mirror dye, so the two socks would be somewhat similar, because I had always planned on spinning this for socks, but the yarn turned out to be a lot thicker than I intended. So I just did heavier weight socks, so these will be like more wintry boot sock type of socks. And I knit these toe up. So yeah, really happy with how these turned out actually. I used larger needles for these. I think I used 3mm needles or 3.25, and I just went down on my stitch count. So I would normally knit 64 stitches, so I went down to 56 stitch for the pattern. And this time I did the patterning throughout. So because I was going toe up, I think I ended up only doing 3 repeats of the pattern for the full length of the foot and then the leg, and I just did a really long ribbed cuff to use up as much of the yarn as I could for both socks, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed doing that as well. So now I have 2 versions of the design. One was knit toe up, one was knit cuff down. So toe up is great if you want to use up the maximum amount of yarn, and or if you don't know if you have enough yarn to knit a full pair of socks going cuff down, so you can go toe up, and that way you can finish whenever you're about to run out of yarn. I didn't think I would get a full length pair of socks out of the yarn I had spun, but I did. For me, a full length pair is when the leg of the sock is slightly longer than the foot of the sock, and that's what these are. So I was really quite happy with that, to be honest. So I didn't think I would. But it was nice to have a version done each way so you guys can see the differences. And yeah, I'm really happy with how that looks. And yeah, super flexible pattern, and again offered with that same sort of pricing structure as I mentioned for the sweater, and just lots of fun. And of course you don't have to use hand spun, you can use whatever yarn you'd like, but there were some considerations with this design which makes it more suitable to hand spun. To be honest, most of my socks now come with toe up and cuff down instructions, so that's always there as standard, and I always as standard have a variety of stitch counts included. But one of the main things that was different with this one was I specifically chose a rib based patterning, because I know a lot of the time with hand spun one of the difficulties is consistency, and my hand spun isn't consistent at all. I definitely have some thicker bits and thinner bits, but having rib being the basis of your patterning means that you're always going to have a nice snug fit, because that ribbing's always going to pull in and be a little bit tighter. So if you have that slight variation in gauge or in thickness of your yarn, it shouldn't have a negative impact overall in the fit of the socks at the end of the day. That's the theory. And yeah, so far you guys seem to really enjoy this pattern. Like I said, it's only been published a few days and I've had some really great feedback on it so far, so thank you guys so much. I will have links to both this and this design in the description box down below. And since we're on the topic, I guess we're kind of already started with our finished objects with these 2 pairs of socks, and I will continue with the topic of socks. Okay, so I have 2 other pairs of socks that I've knit as like gift socks. So this one here was out of Hue Loco yarn in, I think it was the Nightingale colorway. This is a really nice sort of navy blue color. And this is my London Bee Ridge sock pattern. I think this is another sock pattern actually that'd be great for hand spun, because it's such a simple texture, and it really just lets the hand spun speak for itself if you were to knit it with hand spun. And so I think this is one of my favorite go-to sock patterns. If I want something that's not just plain vanilla, this is one of the ones I go to. I really love it. It's a really nice basic sock pattern. And then the other one that I've finished knitting was this one, and this was out of a opal yarn. I can't remember which specific line, but it's a yarn I've had in my stash for years now. We were in Bahrain when I got this yarn. A viewer sent it to me, and yeah, I remember coveting it and not wanting to knit it up for ages because I really like the colours so much. And I ended up doing a weird amalgamation of my Pebbles sock pattern and my Cobblestones pattern. I don't know why, but I managed to muddy the 2 up, and I've ended up doing something that's kind of an in-between of the 2. I guess it's very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar to like the Hermione's Everyday sock pattern, I guess. It's not the same as that at all. But yeah, anyway. Ooh, but yeah, so these 2 pairs of socks are going to go into my gift knitting pile. And yeah, I haven't been knitting that many pairs of socks this year, mainly because 1, I've been working on that huge project that I keep talking about, and secondly because I've knit so many socks in the last few years, and quite honestly, a lot of the people that I knit for or knit socks for already have like tons of socks by me. So I'm running out of people to knit for, essentially, or people in my life who are knit worthy enough for a pair of hand knit socks. And I have a drawer full of socks. I have another drawer that's starting to pile up with socks that I've knit for myself that I haven't even started wearing yet because I have so many still in my drawer that are in rotation. My husband doesn't wear that many socks. He has a few hand knit socks, but he doesn't wear them all that often because he runs hot, unfortunately. Good for him, bad for me as a knitter because I don't get to knit him as many things as I would like. And Layla, I do actually need to knit her some socks for this winter because I think she's probably outgrown most of the socks I've knit her up until now. And she does appreciate it, she absolutely loves it. But there again, I haven't knit her too many because she outgrows them so quickly. And also she's a lot like my husband, she runs quite hot. So she doesn't always like to have them on for too long, and also wearing them around the house, they're quite slippery for her, so she ends up falling over. So anyway, I have two other pairs of socks to share with you, and these two are designs. One should be coming out soon. It's currently with my tech editor, words. And the other one, I actually need to re-knit the sample because I want to make a few changes to the design from my first sample that I knit. But I'm really happy with that first sample. I just want to re-knit it, basically, is what I'm getting at. So the first one are these socks. And I'm calling these In Bloom because the little pattern here reminds me of little flowers. And I think this is going to be the start of a new sort of mini collection of sock patterns based around using twisted stitches. And that's kind of where these two designs came from, was going to be the start of a design collection with twisted stitches in mind. And so this is all based on like a twisted rib throughout. And I just really love the look and the crispness of the lines of stitching when you use like a twisted rib pattern. So these are called In Bloom, and the yarn I used for these, I can't remember the colorway name, but the yarn is by Lay Family Yarns, and it was one of her sock sets. I think I picked this up at the retreat I went to last year that she hosted. Hello cat, that's Derek. Hey buddy. Just toddling along. Yeah, so this is really really lovely. I love this pattern, and I've been holding off publishing it because, like I said, I've been waiting to make this as part of a collection. But I think what I might do is release the sock patterns as and when I get to finishing them, and then once it's all complete, put it together as a collection maybe. I don't know, I haven't decided. I might hold off and wait until I have another one ready to go and then release them in pairs. I don't know, I haven't fully decided. Let me know your thoughts. But I've written this one up, and it's, like I said, it's with my tech editor ready to go, almost. The second one is this beauty. I can't really tell from there, but this was knit out of Barnyard Knits in her sock yarn in the leaf colorway, I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly. And again, it's based in that twisted rib. Let me see if I can show you properly how that looks. So yeah, it's kind of got the crossing of the, it's kind of like a cable, I guess it is a cable. I'm trying to remember how I did it now. I wrote down the instructions, but I never typed it up because, like I said, I wanted to make some modifications to the patterning. I kept the heel in stockinette for this one, whereas typically these days I do the garter heel a lot. I just thought the garter was going to be quite stark in contrast with all this twisted rib on this particular pair of socks. I didn't think it would match very well. Whereas with this one, I think because it was a contrasting heel, it actually looks okay with the garter heel there. I don't know, I decide as and when based on the patterning on the socks that I'm knitting. And one of the things I want to change is how I suddenly like stopped doing this patterning. I wasn't quite happy with that in the end. But yeah, these look like really long socks, but it's just because the legs ended up super skinny because of the ribbing. It does stretch out, but it is, I also think I knit the wrong size for myself. That's another reason I wanted to re-knit the sample. But yeah, anyway. Really like these socks. These will probably end up going to my mum, and she's going to be really happy about it because I haven't told her yet, and she's probably hearing about it watching this video. So so yeah, I need to re-knit that sample and get it written up, and I think I want to come up with another 2 or 3 designs to go together as part of that, as a collection. So yeah, I keep saying so, sorry about that. I know that really annoys a lot of people when I'm like and so and stuff like that in videos, but I can't help it sometimes. All right, I'm gonna get myself rearranged and I'll be back with my remaining finished objects. Before I move on to the next finished object, I realized I forgot to mention what needle size I used for those pairs of socks that I mentioned. So for everything other than the hand spun socks, which I think I talked about the needle sizes when I mentioned those, for everything other than the hand spun socks, I used 2.25mm needles, and my needle of choice for sock knitting right now are my Chiagus, the pointy ones with the red cable. I really like those for sock knitting. They suit my style of sock knitting really well. I used to absolutely love using high sharps, and I still love the sharp point on them, but the cable on those needles annoy me a little bit more than the Chiagus, and for that reason I tend to gravitate more towards my Chiagus. Also, I tend to bend my high needles with my grip. Some of my high sock needles now, when I hold them side by side, the needles are like completely bent out of shape, so there's that too. Okay, so moving on, my next finished object is a long-standing WIP. Was a long-standing WIP rather. So, oh, it's this big old blanket. It's not actually that big, it's more of a lap blanket. I shared a picture of it on my Instagram when I finished it a few weeks ago. And yeah, so I started knitting this last year during Vlogmas, during December last year. If you were watching, you will probably remember that. This was a kit from We Are Knitters. I can't remember the name of the blanket, but it was a blanket kit that they sent me to knit and talk about and share on the podcast and stuff. It was not a paid for sponsorship, but they sent me the kit for free in exchange for a review, and I really enjoyed knitting it. It's really soft, it's lovely chunky sort of knit. Oops, sorry, shook the camera. It's a lovely chunky knit, and it was really fun to work on, and really simple, really nice mindless knitting sort of in front of the TV. And the only reason I put it down and stopped working on it was because it was starting to hurt my wrists, because I got a little over halfway through and the weight of the blanket on the needles got really heavy. Like it's a really heavy blanket. There's probably close to, let me see. There's probably close to 2 kilos of yarn in this blanket. It's really quite heavy. So it got to a point where the weight on the needles was starting to aggravate my wrists, because I was knitting a lot of other things as well at the time. And so I put it aside for a while, and I never really, it's not that I didn't go back to it, it was there and I saw it and I knew I wanted to knit on it. And every now and again over the following few months I'd pick it up and add a couple of rows to it. But then I'd always end up putting it away because I was worried about it aggravating my wrists again. Then as things progressed in September, and I'm the kind of person, I don't tend to have more than 2 or 3 things on the go at once on my knitting needles, because I don't like to have too many things cast on. And so when things started to go a little bit haywire in September and I ran out of knitting projects, I didn't really have the brain space to cast on something new, and I was dealing with a lot of other things going on at the time, and I just needed something a little bit more mindless to work on. So I went back to this and I picked this up, and it was just what I needed. And I was working on it over, I did the Can retreat, which was hosted by Anne Choi and Marceline Smith from Hey Brownberry. And it was a wonderful retreat weekend. It was online, obviously, because of COVID. It was supposed to be an in-person retreat. And actually I remember on one of the sessions saying that, you know what, I'm really glad it ended up being online, because I wouldn't have been able to attend it had it been in person. And so, you know, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because September's always a very busy month for us, as just in general. There's so many birthdays and other things happening during this month that I couldn't have justified a trip to the US for myself for a few days just to attend a retreat. It would have been different if it was a work trip, but just like a for me trip, I wouldn't have been able to justify it in September. It just wouldn't have worked out. But because it was online, I was able to make it work, which was really exciting. And so I ended up finishing this whilst on that retreat, and so it holds lots of lovely memories from that weekend. And yeah, Layla loves it. She keeps calling it her blanket. And I was actually going to get it in red when I first picked it, but I realized I've knit a lot of red things for her. And we have that yellow armchair, and we have a bunch of yellow, so like these sort of mustardy yellow cushions on our sofa. So I thought it'd be really nice to have a yellow blanket for the sofa. But Layla keeps claiming it, and I keep finding it downstairs in her room. So it's probably going to be hers, let's be honest. But yeah, I'm really glad this one is finished and off the needles. And yeah, I was determined before it got to December again that this was going to be done. I'm just going to pop that on the sofa behind me there. Okay. So yeah, I think we only have one more finished object to talk about, and this is going to be the subject of my Knit With Me series, which I'm so excited about. That I've been waiting to film this podcast to then be able to start filming for that series. So I'm going to start filming this series this month, but I don't know when I'm actually going to start publishing the videos yet. I'm trying to figure out the best time to do it, and I'll explain more in a minute. But so this is the shawl, and once I finished, I got to another point basically. When was it? Was it last week? Was it that? Yeah, it must have just been last week. Last Friday I cast this on. So today's Saturday, so not yesterday, the week before. I cast this on, and I basically knit on it all weekend, and I finished it off. I bound off Monday morning. It was a really quick knit. I needed that, and again, I was processing things. I was going through some stuff at the time, and I didn't have anything else on the needles. And the yarn that I used for this was already wound up, had been wound up for months, so I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to prep any yarn. I didn't have to get my Swift out or anything. Like, I just wanted something completely mindless. And I cast this on, and oh, that was it. I'd finished all the knitting for my big project, and I'd finished any whips I'd had. I was basically had a clean slate at this point. But because it was the start of the weekend, I didn't have any time to sit down and do any prep and planning for another new design that I wanted to start. So I was like, okay, what can I cast on and just work on over the weekend and not have to really think at all, essentially, when knitting it. Just have something to keep my hands occupied so I could process stuff. And so this is what came out of it, and I called it my palette cleanser shawl because that's what I needed at that time. I just needed a palette cleanser, and that's really what it is. It's the perfect palette cleanser. Like, it's huge. It is absolutely ginormous. I haven't measured it yet, but it's freaking huge. If I put it over my shoulders, geez. The back point, basically, I could probably sit on the, yeah, I'm sat on the point of the bottom of the shawl, and it still reaches over my shoulders. So it's a really, really deep shawl, really big. It's basically like a schlanket. It's a shawl blanket, let's be honest. I haven't measured it yet, but this was knit out of my own hand spun, out of a set of fibres that I picked up at Fibre East last summer from Witchcrafty Lady. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Poledale or Perrendale. I can't remember the name of the fibre now, but it was beautiful. And this grey, this light grey, actually has some silk in it as well, whereas the other is just the wool. So I spun these up last summer, and like I said, I've had the yarn wound up, ready to go for something, and I can't even remember what I originally planned on knitting out of this, but whatever it was, I never got around to it, clearly. And I pulled it out, and I just cast this on, and I used 6mm needles because the yarn for this is a little bit on the heavier side. And like I said, it just whizzed off the needles, and I finished off with a little I-cord edge at the bottom. And the patterning here is just some slip stitch mosaic style patterning. And this is going to be the subject of our Knit With Me series. I did a really fun new to me version of a garter tab cast on, which is essentially seamless on the back. You don't get any weird lumpy bits from picking up stitches, and it was just a really nice edge. And I didn't have to do too much to get it to go flat at the top. You know, sometimes when you do that garter tab cast on, the top of the shawl can bump out a little bit. I didn't have that problem with this, so I didn't have to like aggressively block that out or anything, so that was really nice. And I had a fun way of doing my increases for this as well. There's two options for increases in the pattern, which is already written up. I just have to take some pictures and send it to my editor. so yeah, it's a really fun one for hand spun because it's written very much as a recipe, and yeah, so it's a really fun one to knit with most sorts of yarns. If you wanted to get yarn ready for this project, I would recommend anything from like a DK to a worsted / bulky, not like proper bulky, but I'd say like a heavy worsted, kind of like a Malabrigo worsted is probably about as thick as I would say, because that's technically like a thicker worsted weight style yarn. It's kind of like a single ply, but DK is a good one to go with. And because you can see this is quite big and this was more of a worsted weight yarn, you want roughly 200 meters or about 220 yards of each of your 3 contrast colors, and you want about double that for your main color. So I had about 200-ish grams of my main color and about 100 grams of each of the contrast colors, or maybe actually a little bit more because there were 4-ounce skeins of fiber that I had. Anyway, I posted on my Instagram with the details for it. And so I've pulled out yarn for my version that I'm going to use for the Knit With Me series, and this was the color palette that I came up with. And I just really loved these rich autumnal colors together. And funnily enough, these are all from, the fibers are all from John Arbon Textiles. And these two, so this is my hand spun, this was commercial, not commercial, this is some farm yarn I picked up from Will You Farm in, they're based out of Linden in Vermont. It's 90% Cormo and 10% black fine wool. So this is about 250 yards in a 4-ounce skein, so it's roughly a DK weight. And I picked up 6 or 7 skeins of this, intending to knit a sweater at my very first Rhinebeck, and I've ended up using skeins here and there for other projects, and it's just been so lovely to work with, and I'm so glad I did that because I never cast on that sweater obviously, and I bought this 3 years ago now, so I'm really glad I'm working through this stash of this yarn now and it's getting used up in lots of fun projects. And so this is going to be my main color and these are going to be my contrast colors, and hopefully by the end of it I should have actually no yarn left, which is how this works. Because you kind of just knit until you run out, as it were, which is really great. So these are like 250 yards a skein, and these 3, so the red one is is pomegranate, and I think I blended this on my blending board with some camelid fibers from Hilltop Cloud. There was like a little sampler pack that I got, so there was some llama, alpaca, camel as well, and 2 types of alpaca fibers in there, so I sort of all mixed up, and so that's all like blended in with this one. And so I got 197 meters or 215 yards and 115 grams, so that's fine, it's roughly the same. And then this one I've got quite a lot more from this one. I ended up chain plying this one, so this one was a 2-ply, this one's chain plied. I think I chain plied this in 2 skeins because I guess I thought I was going to do socks out of it. This is from the Harvest Hues in the Russet line. I think this was also Harvest Hues in pomegranate. This was Russet colorway, and in total I have about 280 meters of this one. So this one's quite a bit finer, but it's fine. It's going to be, when it's all knit up together, it doesn't really matter too much. And this one is also a 2-ply. This is a Corridel, and this is Dark Gold of the Sun. And I got 288 meters out of this as well, but I had more yardage and more grams. I had 130 grams of this one. So yeah, so this is probably the order I'm going to do it in, with the red one first because I had the lowest amount of yardage, and then going up to the yellow, and then I like to finish with a dark color, so I'll end it with the green. And it's kind of, to me, this color palette sort of feels like a moody Christmas sort of color palette, which I really like, and then paired with the gray, that will kind of just contrast with it quite nicely. So yeah, so my idea is to start posting the videos for this Knit With Me series sort of at the beginning of November, as kind of like a knit along as well, so we can all knit along together and have a lovely shawl at the end of it. So I'm going to break it up into different sections and then have different videos for each section, and yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I hope you will. I'm looking forward to it, that's for sure. And yeah, I got really good feedback when I asked if people wanted to do that as a Knit With Me sort of video. And yeah, so It's a really fun, really quick knit. And you could also do it with just 2 contrasting colours. You don't have to use it with do it with 3, because as you can see, the shawl is huge, and if you only had it with 2 colours, it would still be plenty big. Not even an issue. You could probably even do it with just 1 contrast colour and still have a pretty decent sized shawl, or like a shawlette style size. So it's fairly flexible in that regard. And yeah, really looking forward to it. Have I said that enough? Have I said that I'm looking forward to it enough? The only thing that's kind of got me pausing a little bit with the timing is the fact that I'm also releasing the other big project around the end of this month as well. So I'm not entirely sure. I don't want it to clash too much and I don't want it to feel like I'm pushing too much on you guys at the same time. Oh, fibre. So I'm just gonna play it by ear and see what works best for me as well with the timings. So having talked about things being a bit crazy in September and needing some mindless projects to work on when other big things had finished, one of the other projects I started working on was my granny stripe blanket, which you guys probably haven't seen in a very, very long time, probably about a year or so. And so I started picking this up, and if you remember, if you've been a long time viewer, that I had wound up like a magic ball of yarn where I just magic knotted the end and different minis together throughout, and I had this big ball of yarn that was almost the size of my head when I started, and I finished it. Basically is what I'm trying to say, is I finished it. And where is the progress keeper that I plopped into it? So yeah, the progress keeper is right here, and so from there all the way to the end up here is how much I've added by finishing up that ball. I don't have a color scheme, or I don't follow a color pattern or anything. I just do whatever. I just try not to have the same colors next to each other. But when I lay it out flat, it's very clear that the bottom of this blanket is significantly narrower than the top, and that's because I'm not a crocheter and I've probably just been adding stitches as I go at the ends. I'm probably not doing it right, and I'm probably adding stitches. I'm not sure what I'm doing. But there we go. It's fine. It's not quite as long as I would like it to be to call it done, but it's basically sort of squared off now. So I could leave it as is and it would be fine, but I'd probably like to add another 5 to 10 inches to it and then call it done, and just kind of, I was aiming to go for like a twin size, so big enough to cover Layla's bed sort of thing, but I don't know. I'm kind of at that point where I'm pretty much ready to call it done. So we'll see. I don't know. I haven't fully decided if I'm going to call it done or not. And if I do call it done, what I'll probably do is wind up like a neutral grey yarn or something and crochet a border around it just to finish it off nicely and to give it a nice sort of edging. You know what? I'm probably just going to call it done. I know myself well enough to know I'm probably not going to come back to this. And especially because I've finished at the end of a row as well. Yeah, I'm kind of in that brain space where I want this to be finished. So I'm probably going to try and finish that up soon and pop a border on it. Okay, I'm trying to figure out where to put stuff down now. Okay, there we go. And so another scrappy project I've picked up, again, because I'm teaching this weekend and I finished all my other projects that I had cast on, and I don't have time to sit down and do math this weekend and figure out stuff for a new design, etc, etc, etc. I just need something to keep my hands busy when I'm not teaching or running around with Layla. So I picked up my pinwheel blanket project again. So this is one of my designs. It's designed to actually be knit out of fingering weight yarn. I've modified the pattern slightly, so I'm using DK or worsted weight or fingering weight held double for all of these squares. And the pattern tells you to cast on 30, but I'm only casting on 20 and I'm using thicker needles. So my squares are ever so slightly smaller than the size you would get in the pattern, but if you followed the pattern, but I wanted the squares to be a little bit denser to make a more, like a slightly heavier weight blanket for Layla. And this one definitely will be bigger than that crochet one, because I'm actually more interested in knitting this than I am in crocheting that granny stripe blanket. So yeah, so I've done 3 squares in the last couple of days, so they don't really take that long to knit up. I've already pulled scraps together for another, I think 5 or 6 squares, or maybe even 7 squares, so I think about 10 squares in total by the time I finish all the scraps that I've pulled together and minis and stuff. I'm gonna have a really big destash, like a minis and scraps destash soon. I need to pull it all out. I've started to, once my bag of scraps overflows and it starts taking up 2 bags, then I'm like, I need to start like purging this stuff and getting it out of the house and pass it on to other people who are knitting scrappy projects and want to have scraps and stuff or minis to work from. And it's great because these little triangles do not take up even 5 grams of yarn. I think most of them only use around 3 to 4 grams of yarn, so you really don't need large amounts of yarn to knit them up, which is great. And these have been really lovely, sort of like I said, mindless projects that I can work on without even thinking about it. And I do actually offer a pinwheel scrap blanket class, but I taught it the last couple of months for virtual knitting live for Vogue, but it's not on my roster for this month, which is fine. It's nice to mix it up occasionally. And yeah, that's it for works in progress, finished objects, and all that jazz. I'm gonna take a quick break, grab a drink, and I will be back to chat about a few things that have come in the post, a few other things, some arty things, and some general life chats. So first things first, in terms of upcoming projects, I mentioned earlier that Layla came home from preschool the other day saying that she didn't have any mittens, and I was like, well, we cannot be having that now, can we? Mummy has to make you some mittens. So I told her that she could pick out any yarn that she'd like from my stash and I would make her mittens out of it. And she declared that she wanted rainbow mittens. So I have a little video clip that I filmed this morning of her digging through my stash and pulling out a skein of yarn. So I will insert that here for you guys. Alright, so I haven't quite finished my coffee, and Layla is begging me to pick out yarn to make her mittens.
I can make mittens, Mummy.
Yeah?
I can do all by myself.
You sure? Do you want Mummy to make them?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think it's very hard for me to do because I can do really little ones.
Oh, honey.
I think you can...
You can help me pick which yarn you want?
Yeah.
Can you open the yarn cabinet?
It's too...
No, it's okay. There you go. Alright, which one do you want? You said you wanted a rainbow one.
I can't, but that's not a rainbow.
No, not that one, because that one's not going to work. How about one of these ones? How about this one?
And that one does look like good.
Oh, be careful.
I like that one. That one's good.
Yeah, that one good. Do you want to pick out a couple of other options for you? There's also this one.
But I like this one.
You prefer that one? You don't like this one? Okay. Let's see, what else do we have?
I don't want like those ones because I like this. I'm going to do this one today.
You want to do that one? Well, I'm not going to be able to make it today for you. We can put it on the table and I'll wind up the yarn. Alright, so there's a very special girl who's getting a very special skein of hand spun turned into some mittens for her. So this one wasn't spun by me. It was spun by my friend Sarah. And so it says it's hand-dyed merino, 248 yards, a fingering weight chain ply. So I'm not entirely sure actually how this is going to knit up. I think it's just in one colour repeat, so we'll have to see when it's wound up what that looks like.
Mummy.
Your mittens might be different colours, okay? Is that alright? We'll have to see what it looks like when I wind it up.
Did they do it later?
You want to wind it up later?
Yeah.
Someone got a little bit upset because I started opening it up. Told me off. Didn't you? Just had a quick look. I'm pretty sure that skein is in one sort of colour progression, rainbow colours. Lila, don't put it on the floor, please. Put it on the table. So we'll have to see how that's going to work when I want to knit it up. We'll have to see. Oh, I think Mummy's phone is ringing. Can you go get it? I think it's my alarm. Because I was under some delusion I might be able to sleep in this morning. What are you doing today?
Going to swimming.
Are you excited? Layla's starting swimming lessons today.
Yeah.
Who are you going with?
Daddy.
Yeah.
Sash is coming.
Yeah, Sash is in your swimming class. That's going to be fun.
Sash is going right now.
No, it's too early right now.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sit down, please.
Sash.
Layla, can you sit properly on
I'm
your
trying
chair?
to get me close.
Okay, well, you can ask me. I'll help you.
I already did it
Okay.
because I did it with my feet.
Okay.
I'll make it like with a hand up. Hand up.
All right, you can try.
It's not too heavy for me.
You got to make sure you're looking at it properly and that you're on the screen. There you go. What did we do yesterday?
Ballet.
Yeah. Was it lots of fun?
Yeah.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah.
What did you tell me?
I wasn't shy anymore.
No, you're a big girl.
I got all by myself.
Okay, let's hold it a bit further away. No one wants to see inside your mouth, honey.
I want to hold it further away. Look,
Okay.
I got very far arms now.
Yeah. Are you going to talk to the camera? Be careful, don't shake it around too much.
I went to preschool when I went to preschool, Mummy.
Okay, so this is the yarn that she picked out. It says that it was 4 ounces, 120 grams, and superwash merino, 14 wraps per inch, so roughly a fingering weight, and she got 248 yards in a chain ply. So because it's chain ply, the colours only go in, I don't think they repeat, I think it is just one colour progression. So we will see. I told Layla that the colours might not be on both sets, like both mittens, that she might only have some colours on each one, but I'm also thinking of holding it double because it is a fingering weight, and I'm not sure fingering weight mittens are going to be the best for a toddler. But we'll see. I mean, she does also run hot, so maybe it would be fine, but we'll see. When I wind it up and I see how the colours progress and stuff, I'll make a decision about how I will knit it up for her. But she's super excited for her rainbow mittens, and I can't wait to get going on that for her. It's nice to have something to focus on. Other things. So I was contacted a while ago by John Arbon Textiles about whether or not I wanted to check out some new yarn that they've been working on. So this is their Alpaca Supreme 4-ply yarn. So these are the colours that they have for it right now. So if I show you on the side with the names. It's a really lovely sort of like neutral muted tones. The yarn is made out of 40% alpaca, British alpaca, 40% organically farmed Falklands merino, and 20% AI mulberry silk. I think AI is the grade. So it's a 4-ply, heavy 4-ply / sport weight yarn. 100-gram hanks gives you approximately 333 meters, and they currently have plans to launch a heavy lace weight version, which would have 600 meters per 100 gram in the coming months. And so they have a range of 8 different colors right now. There's everything from the dark black, gray, anthracite down to the low light of this lovely sort of purpley mauvey color. And they were really lovely and sent me a sample of the yarn and the fiber for this. So they sent me the yarn in the Morganite colorway. So it's really lovely sort of soft peachy blush color. Really lovely sort of peachy blush color. And the fiber they sent me, I think, is in the azurite colorway, which is just beautiful. Look at that beautiful blue, and the sheen of that silk and alpaca really shows through. So I haven't touched my spinning wheel since early days of lockdown, probably since March. So I'm looking forward to getting back to it. I do kind of miss it. I've been feeling the urge to get back to my spinning wheel. So maybe this will be the first thing I spin when I get back to it. And yes, so let me see. I believe it's now available for purchase. I don't think it's got a special like release. I don't think there's a specific release date for it. I'm just double checking the information to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. yeah, so they were saying that their new shades, the names are all they're all named after precious metals, stones and minerals, because they have that lovely silk sheen to them. So I think that's really lovely. And yeah, so you can find that on their website, which is jarbin.com. So that's the website. And they do ship international as well. So if you're not based in the UK and you'd like to get some, you can. They are a local small mill in the UK, which is really nice to support. And the other thing that came in the post is a lovely book, and this is called the Colourwork Bible by Jessie Ostermiller. I'm really sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Jessie. Jessie was really sweet, and she reached out to me about this book and wanted to send me a preview copy, or an advanced copy rather, to do a review on the channel, and I do plan on doing a review for it. There was nothing to say that I had to do the review before the release date of the book. The book's actually now published. It's now available. I think it was published on the 6th of October, or it was available from the 6th of October. So huge congratulations to Jessie on this. There's been clearly been a ton of work that's gone into this book. The photos are lovely, the patterns look like they're really fun to do, and it's basically covering all different methods of colourwork knitting, or knitting with colourwork. So there's everything from stripes, stranded, slip stitch and mosaic, intarsia, double knitting, brioche, and brioche. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6 different methods of colourwork, or working with colour. I love that sort of photo on that page with all the different colours of yarn. And there's all sorts of techniques. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 patterns, if I'm counting that correctly. Yeah, I think there's 11 patterns in the book, and there's all sorts of like techniques and tutorials on different methods included, with like photos and images and stuff like that. So it's really handy. Lots of little tips and tricks in there. So I'm going to be reading it a little bit more thoroughly and posting a review at some point on the channel. I did message Jessie and explain and apologise for there being a delay in posting a review for this. I had planned on doing it at the end of September, but yeah, life threw some curveballs. So I will be getting to this soon, hopefully. So that was it in terms of stuff that came in the mail that I wanted to share with you guys that hasn't already been used up in projects. And another thing I wanted to share with you that I'm really excited about is that I got a restock of the greeting cards that I've been selling over on my Etsy shop. So actually, I think I forgot to mention this at the beginning. A lot of my newer patterns are now also available on my Etsy shop, which is Mina Makes. It's linked down in the description box. But I also sell digital art downloads, art prints of my paintings that I've been doing. And I started selling greeting cards of my art prints as well. And the greeting cards are about A6 size, so half of this size, so like that big, like half of this size, and they've been selling really well. I think I only have 2 sets of greeting cards left in the shop right now, so I've ordered a restock of those greeting cards, so those will be coming soon to the shop. There'll be a restock of those, but this time I also ordered note cards. So essentially it's like, and these are bigger as well. These are A5 size, so and they're blank on the back, so you can either treat them like a postcard or a note card, and they will be packaged with an envelope for each one. So you could post them if you wanted to, or you could treat them as prints, because they're on really high quality cardstock, or yeah, I guess printed paper. And so you could treat these as prints. You could either just stick them up on your wall, frame them, stick them on your fridge, whatever you'd like. And yeah, so I have 20 different versions, 20 different prints for these. So I'll quickly run through them. There's this one. This one's like a little knit print, which is quite fun. I really love this wreath. Oh, I think that one was this way as well. This one was one of my favourites that I've painted. I really love this one as well. This was another favourite. another knit print. And yeah, so I really love how these have turned out, and they'll be offered in sets as well. And like I said, they're really fun. You can either use them as prints to be framed or hung up somewhere or whatever, or you can use them to write notes, or even use them as cards instead of traditional greeting cards, or whatever you'd like to use them for. So I think these are very versatile and really fun to really fun, and I'm really glad I'm able to offer these as another option. And like I said, these are larger than the greeting cards. The greeting cards are sort of A6 size, half the size of this, and these are A5. So yeah, there's that. That'll be coming soon. And then another thing I've been working on, and I'm kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do with these, but I've been, again, needing to clear my head these days. So I've been working on some like little abstracts and just playing with color and shapes and lines and stuff like that. I've only done a few so far, but Layla really likes this one. I think it's actually, I had it this way up before. I've only done a few of these so far, and I've done a few more, but I haven't done the second layer of like doing the lines and stuff on top of them. So just been like playing with color and things. And I think what I'm going to do, I don't know how, I've got 10 so far, but I'm probably going to do a few more. And what I'm going to do is I'll pop one of these in with each order of cards or whatever that go out until I run out. Get a little original painting by me. Not a huge masterpiece, but it's a little original painting, and these won't be replicated at all. So these are going to be truly one-off little paintings that anyone who orders a greeting card or note cards or anything will be able to get. And like I said, it'll be limited numbers as well, based on how many I get done before I launch. So I think that was it in terms of everything I wanted to show you guys. In terms of what's been going on recently, I'll start with some happy news, I guess, some of the happier things. So recently, or over the summer, Layla had been begging, like absolutely begging to go to ballet classes again. And I used to take her, but when we first moved in here, I started taking her. She was around 18 months old when we started. And I think it was just a little bit too young. She wasn't really that into it, and she was really shy, didn't really want to do any of the activities, was just, you know, and she started doing some of the stuff, but it got to a point where I was like, what was the point in going? Because she didn't really seem to be that into it. And, you know, anyway, so I stopped going. We stopped going. And it was around the time that we went on our trip to Europe that I stopped taking her, and then we came back and we were busy over the summer, and so it didn't feel like we were really missing out much. And then, like I said, over the summer she'd been begging to go back to ballet. So in September, ballet classes started up again. I'd been keeping tabs on, we take her to baby ballet, so I've been keeping tabs on it to see when they were starting up again. And so soon after they started up again, I signed her up. And so we're going to a slightly different place, but she has the same teachers she had before, which was really nice. And her class is a little bit smaller as well, which is also really nice. And now that she's over 3 years old, in this class the parents don't go in with them. But because she was only just starting back, they let the parents go in for the first couple of weeks sort of thing, until they're eased back in and feel more confident. And so this week we went on Friday, we went yesterday, and so at the door she was like, "Mummy, I don't need you anymore. I can go by myself. You wait outside." And I was like, huh. I don't think my heart was ready to hear that yet, but I mean, I know it's just because she's confident and she's got that independence that I've always been very independent, so I encourage that in her as well. But it was just that moment where I was like, you don't need me right now, and like I felt, oh, anyway, it was a bit emotional, I will be honest, but it was okay. She had a great time, and I got to watch her through the window. And I actually got her a new ballet dress last week. It's a bright red tutu, because of course it is. Bright red ballet dress, and she loves it. And after her first ballet lesson back, we went to, there's a small little dance shop in town, and we went in and I got her sized and got her proper ballet shoes. She was like begging for ballet shoes. She was like, I can't go to ballet without ballet shoes. And I was like, well, actually you can, but we'll go get you ballet shoes because you've been a good girl and all of that. So she was very excited. And then this week I signed her up for swimming lessons, because we've been wanting to get her into swimming lessons for a long time now, but for whatever reason, there's been a whole host of reasons why we hadn't signed her up until now. And then actually we were going to sign her up earlier this year, but then we were waiting for the weather to get a bit warmer, we'd just gotten back from Centre Parks after her birthday at the end of February, when I was going to sign her up, and then COVID happened and everything shut down, so we weren't able to. Again, those all started back up in September. So we've signed her up now, and she's starting this week, and she's so excited. And Perry's going to be taking her to swimming lessons because they're on Saturday mornings, and that's where she is now, which is why I'm able to film this on a Saturday. And yeah, so she was so excited to go, and even better, she's in the same class as her friend Sasha from preschool. So she was even more excited because now they do something outside of preschool together on a weekly basis, which is going to be really fun. And yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Trying to think what else of other sort of happy news there was to share. To be honest, there's been a lot of negativity recently. Already mentioned about the teaching and other stuff that I'm doing, but yeah, so September was a rough month. I lost my granddad on my dad's side in Iran, and my uncle on my mum's side in the UK. And so my uncle was my mum's brother-in-law. And growing up, he was more like a granddad to me and my brother than an uncle. Like, my aunt and uncle were more like grandparents, because they were really the only family we had in the UK, and they are quite a bit older than my parents. So like, my aunt is about 18 years older than my mum, and my uncle's even older than that. So or was even older than that. So I mean, to put it in perspective, my uncle was older than my mum is now when I was born. So he was always an old man to us. He was always like old, essentially, in our eyes as children. Like, he's never been a young person. So yeah, they were always like grandparents to us. And so yeah, it was really hard. We think that both of them, my aunt and uncle, got COVID quite early on in the whole pandemic thing, but it was never officially confirmed, because at the time when they got it, testing wasn't widely available, and they were only testing people who ended up in hospital, and thankfully they were not hospitalized, so they never got a test when they were symptomatic. So we don't know 100% for sure, but we're pretty certain that's what it was. But they both survived that. But I think my uncle never fully recovered from it, and he ended up having other health problems, and he was starting to have some health issues towards the end of last year before COVID happened anyway. And it was just one thing after another, after another, after another, and he just never fully recovered from anything. And he just, as he was recovering from one thing, something else would happen. I'm not going to go into details about any of it, but essentially things took a turn for the worse. And essentially, so I spent my birthday traveling up to London to go visit him in hospital and essentially say goodbye. And a few days after that, he passed away. So it's been a pretty rough month. His funeral was a couple of days ago, and again, I was really glad I was able to make it for that. And yeah, so I think that's all I'm going to say about that before I start crying. Yeah, so that's that. Anyway, so on that rather sad and somber note at the end, I hope you guys are all having a good time, having a good weekend, are doing well, staying safe, staying healthy. Please wear a mask if you go out. Really don't feel like anyone should have to still be saying that by now, but apparently some people don't get the message. And yeah, I guess that's about it, really. I don't know what else to say. I really didn't think I was going to get through the whole podcast whilst they were out at the swimming lesson. I thought they'd be home before I finished. They will probably be getting home soon, so I better wrap up. I will be back again soon, hopefully. Hopefully it won't be another 2 months, but yeah, like I said, it's been a rough few weeks, and but hopefully yeah, anyway, hopefully things will get better. All right, see you guys soon. Bye.